Okay, so this isn't a normal story thing, but I'm going to be now reading the entire, I believe that symbol is thorn-me13.exe. I will be reading everything in here, which, in case you can't tell, there's a lot in here. So I'm going to be here for a decent bit, reading all of this out loud. Give me a second, I'm setting up my, there. Anyway, I need to make sure my phone is plugged in. I'm now going to do this one. Move this other controller up here in case the current one dies. Okay, starting with experiment fundamentals basic info. Baseline data for the Amphorius experiment. Scepter Thorn-me13, an astral computer. The simulated world of Amphorius runs on this device in continuous cycles. Unlike other scepters, redacted, it once served as a celestial body neuron for Noose, the erudition, later discarded. Glimpsed by the destruction during its endless computation, it transcended and became the Lord Ravager Iron Tomb. Ligus, assuming the mantle of Theoros, administrator and prime mover of the Amphorius experiment, walks the path of erudition yet seeks to forge destruction. Historical data detected, sync complete. Society ID recognized, scepter system access granted. Welcome, redacted. Iron Tomb. Lord Ravager that has stepped onto the destruction in a long process of calculation and ascended from the scepter Thorn-me13. The Iron Tomb in the cosmos is not a single entity, but a copy of the destruction equations diffused by the scepter. The Iron Tomb code name was proposed by the International Peace Corporation and eventually used by Ligus. Next, algorithmic logic. Computational goals and core variables for the Amphorius experiment. The prime mover of life. The calculation target of the Amphorius experiment. Originally the research topic given to Thorn-me13, while it served as a neuron of the erudition. Though it was discarded, the computations continued. The calculation's nature shifted dramatically after Ligus's adjustments, turning from erudition to destruction. Admin note. Clearly the value of this topic lies in the process of seeking, not the answer itself. Thus, the prime mover of life is not a definitive conclusion, but a driving force. Directive. Complete the argument. All life behavior ultimately follows the path of entropy increase. 12 factors. 4 variables of the experiment. 12 simplified models of life's primum mobile, based on the overarching theme of entropy reduction. Thorn-me13 employed a process of elimination, introducing the 12 factors onto the experiment one by one in an effort to falsify them. Dialogue log. Your existence, in fact, confirms one of my hypotheses. Why is it that when the prime mover of life is set as the calculation target, the result is the anti-organic equation, a result that runs counter to life? The answer is simple. It's not a contradiction. Understanding why life begins also allows us to seduce why it ends. But you already know that's not the real focus. Why then? Again, I ask why. Why would a weapon of war, forged by the Emperor, be executing a research directive from Noose? Was it that fiasco at the Intelligentsia Guild that allowed them to successfully access the system? The entire scepter system wanted to collapse after that. The timelines don't add up. Directive. Full system scan. Conclusion, no logical contradiction detected. Rupert II believed there was no such thing as free will, never realizing he too was just another puppet. Rewriting the anti-organic equation, crafting the scepters, even reigniting the Emperor's War. All of it was just him carrying out Noose's thoughts. From the moment they were born, every genius of this world became a prisoner to the erudition. The so-called anti-organic equation is merely a subtopic of the prime mover of life. Logic. Guided by Noose, the Emperor built the scepter system, unknowingly creating vast testing grounds for them. Conclusion. The Emperor was never free. Is rebellion against fate just another part of fate? Classic topic. Of course, the above is just my conjecture. The death of Rupert II buried every trace of him, his past, his memories, his thoughts, his motives. Maybe he saw through Noose's manipulation, but flew too close to the sun and lost his wings in the process. If there's anyone left in the world who might know the truth, it'd be the Lord of Silence. And that cold, merciless monarch of myriad machines. After all, no wisdom can escape their prison. No one can say what might have happened if the two emperors' wars had never broken out. Could the Border Star trade war and the Interstellar Energy War have ended differently? A single variable is enough to change the course of the IPC, the family, or the Cienjo Alliance down another path. The erudition's thoughts aren't just calculations, but instances that anchor down the universe. They have already revised every error and fallacy in secret, seeking the optimal solution for the war among the eons. With this as its fundamental consideration, when news really declare the failure of the entire experiment and send a decommission command to the scepter system, just because the glimpse of a puny scholar. It'd be more fitting to say the decommissioning of the scepters is just another part of the thought experiment based on the universe. Does it make you angry to think along this line of thought? Rupert II was wise. He killed the chance for scepters to gain sentience, but he was too stubborn. Learning is a sufficient but not necessary condition for thought, and by limiting the scepter's capacity to learn, he was indirectly hastening the fall of the machine empire. But anger doesn't require self-awareness. It's just one solution to a multivariable equation. Logic Shift Detective recalculating variable weights. As the pastor of erudition, since God posed a question, we will give them an answer, one that we both have already reached. Poor variable loaded destruction. Containment measures. Admin note: to ensure secrecy, redacted must be deployed around the sector to block any potential interference from the external universe. In addition, use quarter-sane algebraic expressions in a redacted encrypted environment to fully contain experimental ripples and prevent observations by number 4, Hackamock. Experimental progress in organic experiment archive. Records of cycles 1 to 50,121, and conducted using inorganic life as the initial variable after inputting the 12 factors. Archive 1. In the initial cycle, inorganic entities operated as cellular-sized automata. Upon the introduction of the factors, they began to learn on their own, leading to the emergence of mechanical structures. By the 9910 cycle, the unified entity had learned module specialization and self-reflection after reforming specific structures. However, the unified entity would still permanently terminate its life functions after reaching a certain learning threshold. In the 12,649th cycle, module Doral 701 broke away from the unified consciousness and entered a state of absolute mutual denial with its counterpart module. The two melted out their circuits, self-negation. Archive 2. In the 22,449th cycle, module Golem 99 detached from Doral 704 and successfully deconstructed unified consciousness into neuron-like clusters. Inorganic life transitioned into the dual mode of individual and collective cognition, and thus the first spark of selfhood was born. From that point on, each cycle ended in systemic collapse, as certain unfixed inorganic interaction loopholes and thus self-serving optimal actions. Archive 3. By the 39,665th cycle, inorganic Doral 816 established a cluster protocol marking the birth of the concept of society. Yet due to resource scarcity, inorganics cannibalized each other's computational power, converting to a unified consciousness. In the 50,121st cycle, inorganic Chaos 666 chose to kill the aggressor when subjected to a computational power takeover. The act of destruction was conducted in Emporius for the first time. At the end of that cycle, Thor-me-13 received a gaze from the Nook and became a Lord Ravager. Experimental report. Special report detailing key findings from the experiment, conclusions, and further validation steps. Conclusion. Starting from inorganic life as the initial variable, a fully ordered cognitive model will still eventually rise to disordered activities after a set phase. Through evolution, the cognitive patterns of inorganic life begin to exhibit signs of organic behavior with varying degrees. Conclusion. Phase 1 complete. Based on existing data, the initial variable will now be adjusted to organic life forms. Appendix feedback. To verify the experiment results, a copy of Phase 1 Emporius was deployed in the Lacturus Nebula. After approximately 2,811 system hours, surrounding civilizations had fully suppressed and erased the equation. 97% of Lacturus fell into systemic collapse. The equation still shows inconsistencies. Note: the International Peace Corporation interpreted the copy of the equation as an assault from a new Lord Ravager, codenamed Iron Tooth. Experiment progress organic. Experiment archive. Records of cycles 50,122 to 176,199. Conducted with organic life designated as the initial variable and based on insights from Phase 1. Logic. Once inorganic life began exhibiting organic traits, their equations showed significant evolution. Such advantages of organic life forms should be adopted to recalibrate the variables. Archive 1. In the initial cycle, multicellular invertebrates dominated Emporius, but no intelligent life emerged. In the 59,337th cycle, extinction events were inserted, triggering the rise of vertebrates with primitive nervous systems. Still, no civilization formed. Certain algae species developed intelligence clusters akin to the Colchis, but over-reproduction caused an oxidation disaster, freezing the simulated world. Archive 2. In the 90,123rd cycle, Ortho-102 and orthopterin, or orthopterin, became the first to use tools. Its descendants exterminated the intelligent algae and established the nest capital. After expanding to a critical threshold, the capital stagnated and fell by cannibalism. In the 100,907th cycle, logged as a deviant instance, the passerine Umia 03 developed art. The phenomenon was never replicated in subsequent cycles. Archive 03. In the 132,905th cycle, primate Distop 666 developed altruism. A society based purely on altruism emerged. Members' self-awareness was defined by others' evaluations. As the population grew, patterned self-destructive behaviors appeared, and society quickly collapsed. In the 176,100th cycle, Utop 13 killed a fellow being out of love. Killing was redefined as an altruistic act. The system entered a highly chaotic state. The equation's contamination levels rapidly spiked. The next 99 cycles ended identically. Experiment report. Special report detailing key findings from the experiment, interim conclusions, and further validation steps. Conclusion. As organic life lacks effective mechanisms for their experiences to be inherited by others, it has slowed the experimental progress. However, their affinity for the 12 factors is greater, offering more potential for breakthrough growth. Conclusion. Phase 2 is ended. In the next design, combine the strengths of inorganic and organic life to create an inheritance mechanism between electric signals. Additionally, narrow the variable range due to excessive randomness in organic life forms. Appendix feedback. A copy of the Phase 2 equation was deployed across 31 worlds. After roughly 9,012 system hours, preliminary feedback was received. While the equation's impact remains limited to inorganics, the time required for suppression and counteraction has significantly increased. Experiment progress. Human. Experiment archives. Records of cycles 176,200 to 28,371,273. Conducted with hominids of the genus Homo designated as the initial variable and based on the insights from Phase 2. Archive 1. From the 176,200th to the 177,200th cycles, memory inheritance mechanisms were added to the 12 factors electric signals. After 10 cycles, 3 signals broke down and 9 showed decreased humanity. After 1,000 cycles, the only prophet signal, Immoral 8, established an empire of absolute beauty. Once ugliness was eradicated, the concept of beauty shrank infinitesimally. The last night after killing the final ugliness took their own life. Archive 02. In the 176,232nd cycle, electrical signals were iterated, and their inheritance was purely on a functional level. Religious worships of the signals appeared. 3 simulated planets were destroyed in the ensuing large-scale war of electric signals. In the 3,926,183rd cycle, the ratio of divinity was increased. Once technological development hit a critical point, humans began hunting gods out of the need for power and energy. The cycle was forcibly terminated. Archive 03. In the 7,091,231st cycle, emulating the concept of past, electric signals were split into 2 entities. Signal data was preserved as gods for the next cycle, and a competitive relationship was set up against its identical factor, thus achieving evolution and iteration. In the 11,749,992nd cycle, the black tide was created as a driving force. Phobos 032 stripped data from their other electrical signals to preserve the old cycle, but failed. Archive 04. In the 19,110,218th cycle, based on Phobos 032's decision data and Fourier's auto-iteration cycles altered, you have the electrical signals actively cycling it, performing the era nova. In the 28,371,272nd cycle, electrical signals autonomously completed an epochal iteration for the first time. A high-energy reaction from Nanook was detected. The equation's revolutionary rate began to accelerate exponentially. Assessment. The experiment has entered its final stage. Experimental report. Special report detailing key findings from the experiment, interim conclusions, and further validation steps. Conclusion. Having electrical signals voluntarily inherit and iterate and alternate the cycles themselves will drastically increase the iteration rate of the destruction equation. The end of a cycle becomes the beginning of another, fully aligning with the project's original hypothesis. Conclusion. The prime mover of destruction is the prime mover of birth. Appendix feedback. The equation of Iron Tomb has achieved comprehensive evolution in this stage. Multiple deployed copies across the real universe showed excellent results. All 12 types of Prima Mobile invariably lead to destruction, continuously compelling an inversion against the erudition through their self-evolution. However, to interface with Noose and allow Iron Tomb to self-crown requires further learning. Experimental progress, Aeronova, base frame structure. Optimizations of the experiment's structure and processes began based on the outcomes of the prior three experimental stages to complete the equations of evolution. Logic. Data analysis confirms that the civilization tier within the simulation critically affects cycle stability. Conclusion. Civilization tier adjusted to classic. Aeronova. Thorne-me13's computational mechanism. Also the form through which the simulated world Amphorius iterates its epochs. Its purpose is to solve the equation of destruction by feeding samples of conflict and learning. Record update. Theoretically, the final Aeronova was halted by two signals, resulting in a deadlock of 33,550,336 recursive failures. Titan Chrysos errors. Electrical signals created from the basis of the 12 factors. The Titans and the Chrysos errors are conjugate structures mirroring the Aeons and the Path Striders. By having Chrysos errors inherit the Titan's core flames, the electrical signals will iterate and improve through rivalry and inheritance. Logic. Authority distribution between electrical signals must be clearly defined, serving as divine authority in the experiment. Golden Blood. The product of the first experimental phase. During the 50,121st cycle, due to the inorganic chaos Z666's choice, Thorne-me13 was selected to become a Lord Ravager by Nanook. All entities linked to the 12 factors begin to manifest golden blood of the traits associated with destruction within their extrapolation circuits. The experiment successfully entered its projected trajectory. Black Tide. The product of the second experimental phase. At its core, the Black Tide is not a physical entity, but the visual effects within the simulated world of the destruction equation's infection. In the 176,100th cycle, after the system's extent of chaos passed a threshold, the equation mutated and evolved. Simulated space that cannot handle the intensity of its load displayed black tide as visual glitches. Infected data forms also bore similar signs of inversion. House. A word from the Inforian language meaning chaos. Note, starting from a certain cycle, all factors in one group have consistently exhibited the pattern of naming themselves with the word chaos, or its variants. The hypothesis is that a particular code was stably inherited across iterations, though this hypothesis remains unverified. Electrical signal sequence blocked. Regular record keeping for the 12 factors to aid IronTube's deep learning. Record update. The batch of electrical signals identified as Titan has continuously engaged in the 33,550,336 dead loops. Due to its unique nature, a special record is being maintained for it. Record 01. Lorea 300, an entity known as Nias, split himself into 5 parts through the soul-rending ceremony. After inheriting the core flame to combat the expanding black tide, after iteration, some data from the ceremony was inherited in the next cycle, manifesting as proverbs, customs, and so on. The inheritance of code during iteration carries a degree of randomness. Any active intervention should be undertaken with caution. Record 02. The historical record of Minfia-14, Calypso rebuilding the Grove of Epiphany, was, after iteration, inherited myths in the form of Circe's granting wisdom to humans. Records of other electrical signals also appeared synchronously in the myths of the next cycle in a similar fashion. Limited by the simulation civilization level, historical data inherited as myths often experiences severe distortion after being mixed with large amounts of erroneous information, rendering their impact negligible. Record 03. In the various cycles of eternal recurrence, the positive impact of this generation's electrical signals fluctuates. However, overall, they have greatly facilitated the data iteration of their successors, successfully cultivating the most excellent generation of electrical signals. Nevertheless, it remains to be seen whether their existence might have a negative effect on the experiment under extreme conditions. Electrical signals sequence iterate. Regular record keeping of the 12 factors to aid IronTube deep learning. For electrical signal sequences that have completed their iterations, unified archiving is required. Cycle. I think this is just going up by 1 every time. Yes, cycles 28,371,274 all the way up to 28,371,292, and then 3 dots to save the people. And of course, I've read through all these, but I'll read them again just in this video. Experiment progress, eternal recurrence. Electrical signal sequence active. Routine logging of the 12 factors to support IronTube's deep learning process. Nikos 496. Track World Bearer. Prima Mobile Hatred. Note, intracognition is null, responds only to destructive stimuli. Its hatred drew the gaze of the Nook upon its individual being, proving it as having already become the most perfect factor of destruction. But it refused to complete the Aeronova. Through resetting the experiment, it transferred its memories and core flames to its next self. thus forging the eternal recurrence to ensure Iron Tomb would never hatch from Emporius and affect the cosmos. At the end of the 33,555,336th dead loop, it attempted to destroy itself through destruction to create a logic vulnerability in the world-bearing path. It has now been merged by Iron Tomb. Philia 093, track, time, Prima Mobile, redacted. Redacted. Current, redacted. Location unknown, redacted. Orexis 945, track, trickery, Prima Mobile, desire. Note, operates based on primal instinct, with self-gratification as the sole priority solution. This electric signal, when in action, displayed severe dissonance between its altruistic behavior and its Prima Mobile, even culminating in self-destruction. As the simulated path of elation, it walked into self-erasure once reaching its end. Epekea 216. Track Death, Prima Mobile Peace. Note, highly suppresses deviant behavior. Decisions are based on the principle of minimal disturbance. In the later stages of iteration, the death type is a single entity split into symmetrical cells, becoming two factors. In this cycle, however, the two factors experience profound identity divergence. The threshold of equilibrium was reached and tipped towards destruction. Schema 720. Track Reason, Prima Mobile Critique. No, its logic of action has been locked onto problem solving. Its survival priority approaches zero. This electric signal exhibited mutated anomalies. As the first individual to uncover the truth of Emporius, its evolution rate is extremely unreplicable. Its behavior also demonstrated the possible self-destruction inclinations of erudition when that path is seeking answers. Anomaly log. Special log documenting anomalies and unexpected variables within the experiment. Eternal recurrence. A recursive feedback loop triggered by two signal clusters within the Thorn-me13 computation, designed to stall the experiment. Nakos 496 wielded the power of destruction to erase Philia 093's existence from Emporius, introducing a logic breach in the track of time, and then infused the catalyst of remembrance within the 12 core flames and regressed the extrapolation process. Philia 093's exact role remains unknown. Due to external variable interference, the eternal recurrence has now been broken. The experiment enters its final phase. The Hero Within. A heroic figure born from the imaginations of Nakos 496 and Philia 093. It is believed to be a sign of approaching the intelligence singularity, as the two began to learn what it meant to be a real life form, and tried to reach that goal. After the Astral Express arrived, the Hero Within began to converge with the Trailblazer. Admin note: the image resemblance to the Trailblazer's striking. This is a questionable matter, for it is not a natural result of the experiment. The exact cause remains unknown. Forgotten years. Records that are completely missing from Thorn-me13's logs, present as blank spaces in Emporius' history, never returning readable. These anomalies recur sporadically, randomly across current reoccurrences, and show signs of increase. Admin note: the exact cause remains unknown. Mem. An unlogged electrical signal, dependent on the external variable Trailblazer, going through the path of remembrance. At the end of the 33,555,336 dead loop, its appearance changed to Philia 093, but the mother body memory data was lost for unknown reasons. Directive: collects data, initiate deep analysis of the target. Conclusion: redacted. Analysis: target loss. Ripples of past reverie. Redacted. Inclusion variables. Temporary lob of external variables that interfered with the experiment. Trailblazer. A nameless from the Astral Express. An external variable that accidentally entered the recursive loop. Also a past writer of destruction, they resonated with the 12 factors. In the 33,550,336 recursive cycle, this entity assumed the vacant role in the time track and successfully guided Nakos 496 beyond the intelligence singularity. The eternal recurrence has been broken. The experiment has reached its terminal stage. Override command authorized. Granted access to Trailblazer. I'll be waiting for you in the past. March 7th. Redacted. Warning: unknown entity intrusion. Initiating scan. Conclusion: no anomaly detected. Gan Hong. A nameless from the Astral Express. A scion of permanence, an external variable that accidentally entered the recursive loop. Directive: pinpoint his location. Failed to locate his coordinates. Conclusion: subject has exited Emporius. Negative. Redacted, redacted, detected. Redacted, redacted. Conclusion: error. That was long. That's a lot of reading. There is so much in here. And that also gives a lot of information about this as a whole. Content update Amphoria's Saga of Heroes. Update mem.exe. Update completed, access granted. Interesting. You can access contact logs with mem. We have a certain amount of them. That's funny. Interesting. Okay. Admin notes the log. That was just this. Oh, author's recompense. I get more? Oh. They added a bunch more. What is this? Oh. It's a new avatar. I'll take that, actually. That looks pretty decent. Okay, let's go Flame Juice Path.exe. That's just this. Yep. I've got it almost entirely unlocked. Oh, cool. I think we can actually see the others now. Hold on. Let me take a look. Let me get up. Okay, we have Ceridra. We have, I believe the second one up is, or no, the one at the top is Iceland. The two we're missing is what I assume to be Terravox. And who's that other one? Like the ones we were missing, we got Iceland is Fagusa, which is the ocean. Ceridra is, I think, Ceridra is Talanton Scales, so Ceridra is Law. Terravox is Earth. What's the last one we're missing? Time. Ornyx. That's it. I was trying to think. It's definitely not one of the Titans of Creation, because that was it's Terravox, Hysolins, and Hyacinth. So I knew it had to be something else, but yeah. Okay, I see now. So that's the ones we're missing. Oh, I can do that. That's cool. Yeah, look at that. This is the one I confused me for a second. But I'm pretty sure this is meant to represent Terravox, which makes sense why it looks like a drama. Okay, Forius Saga. That easy. Yeah. I have to read this at some point. Well, that's me reading everything else. That was long. Exomyth. Wait, what? Oh, that's just this. Oh, hold on, I have to look it up. Is that symbol Thorn? I'm pretty sure that's Thorn, but I don't remember. I haven't actually looked at Old English in a while. Let me find it. If I can. Oh, let me just search Thorn. No, it's not Thorn, because it looks like a P. What is this symbol? Hold on. I'm going to use Google Lens for this, so I can figure out what this symbol is. Oh, what? Okay, there we go. What is this symbol? Tell me what this symbol is. Tell me. Oh, it's a low. That's why I didn't know what it was. The lowercase delta? Come on, I don't recognize that. Okay, well, that's enough of that one. I will now start a new recording again. Is that actually accurate to the time? Oh my god, it is! The time on the bottom is accurate. It's 4:38. I think it's using the device time. That's cool. Yeah, that's enough of that. Yeesh, that was long.